There's a clip in the film, a group of clubbers in Detroit dancing to Kraftwerk, which for me is one of the most joyful pieces of footage you could ever see of people dancing to this band. For me, that just talks about change and talks about how music can just get into places where nothing else can go really and affect people. My name's Jeremy Deller. I'm an aging artist. I'm in the Reverb exhibition and I have a room that's showing a film I made called Everybody in the Place and a couple of images either side of the documentary. I'd given a talk in a school in North London and these young people were totally engaged and they asked really funny questions, and then when I was asked to make a documentary I just thought, okay, I'm going to go back to that school, basically giving a lecture to them about my view of acid house and rave in the 1980s and its relationship to British history.
Hello, welcome to the Hitman. This is the Hitman.
And this is her.
And this is the source of noise in Blackpool.
Yes, we're back in Blackpool.
Music is an art form. Popular music should be taken seriously. Dance music should be taken seriously. It wasn't for a long time. It was sort of denigrated. House music especially was denigrated in the media, but obviously it was full of meaning, especially for the people that loved it. It was their lives. There's a quote, "Music is prophecy," by a French philosopher. House music and acid house was a kind of prophecy of what the future could be in terms of technology and about how people related to each other. It showed us the future. Now, a lot of dance music has a very strong lyrical content, whereas most of the big songs from the 80s and 90s were basically instrumentals. But what was political was the fact that you were actually in a field or you were somewhere where you weren't meant to be. Any mass movement after the miners' strike, which ended in 1985, was seen as a problem by the government. Of course, because the parties weren't regulated, meant the law had to change. Of course, that makes them political. So the film really isn't about the past, it's about the present and maybe the future as well, because you're seeing the archive through their eyes. They were politics students, but that doesn't mean you study history. Also, I think most of the students in the film, their parents were not born in the UK, so their parents had no experience of growing up in Britain in the 80s and 90s, so there was no folk or familial memory of Britain at that time. So for them, they were looking at a lot of this footage for the first time. It was like watching the news from the past. So their reactions are very visceral and immediate to things like the miners' strike or the traveller movement, or even just footage of raves. I think there's definitely a sympathy with the young people and with their attitudes. It's very London as well. And in a sense, I was trying to show them a version of Britain they might not be aware of.
Stay here, let's get some guitars, let's have a party.
Behind me is a diagram I made. I think I drew it originally in 1996. I was making a project where a brass band played acid house music called Acid Brass. The diagram charts my relationship between these two music movements and also is telling a story about Britain in the 20th century, going from an industrial culture to a post-industrial culture. Weirdly, it serves also as the script for the film you watch, which I made almost 20 years later. So it's called The History of the World, because for some people this is their world. I think it's always good to know about what's come before, regardless of what the history is, not just for dance music, for anything. It gives you a context, but also gives you a perspective.